Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Deputy Secretary General Ms. Amina Mohammed, Presidents of the Executive Boards of UNDP, UNFPA, UNOPS, UNICEF, UN Women and WFP, Heads of the United Nations Fund and Programs, Assalamu alaikum. Climate change widens poverty gaps and existing inequalities, disproportionately affecting women and girls. In small island developing states like the Maldives, the risks are magnified as climate-related hazards materialize in a highly dispersed geography of atolls and islands across the country. With extremes in dry and wet spells increasing, climate change becomes a lived reality here. Like for our women farmers who depend on their limited arable land and harvests for income, subsistence and independence. As rains intensify and become less predictable, excess water becomes scarcer and the soil becomes less fertile. This results in harvests falling. When agricultural production drops and food security is compromised, the amount of time women farmers must work away from home to make ends meet more than doubles. This results in the women facing extra work and greater risks of illness at the farms. Fisheries and tourism sectors kept men away from home, at sea and in resorts. Today, climate extremes push more men to leave their islands to try to find income elsewhere, putting additional burden on the women who stay back and must try to earn while at the same time taking care of the children, the elderly, and the rest of the family. It is the women who remain on the front lines of the climate fight. Certainly, a wider share of the national budget should be redirected to help women adapt to changing conditions on a hotter planet, such as by choosing resilient crops or being able to access microcredit. The prolonged crisis of COVID has compounded the burden faced by women. Women were saddled with a disproportionate load of unpaid care and domestic labor. Women who work in the informal sector had their hours reduced and faced greater unemployment rates than men. Our government in turn did all in its power to introduce helplines, shelters, emergency funds, agricultural grants, and inject income to support affected households to mitigate the worst of these effects. To ensure the full implementation of gender-responsive policy, it is vital to empower women. Under the leadership of President Solih, Maldives has prioritized mainstreaming gender through our strategic action plan and has made tremendous strides in this regard. We have enacted a suite of legislations upholding SDG 5 in the Beijing Platform of Action. Our Decentralization Act allocates 1/3 of the council seats to women, which has resulted in an increase in the number of women in political leadership roles. It has given us a more powerful voice in formulating climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction instruments at the local level. Together with the UN agencies convened under the leadership of the UN Resident Coordinator, the government signed a UN cooperation framework that promotes at its core greater participation of women in social, economic, political and public life. I am proud to share that the government of Maldives has recently approved our National Gender Equality Action Plan for the period 2022 to 2026, supported by the United Nations Development Programme. This action plan is fully aligned with the UNDP Rising Up for SIDS offer, articulating clear strategies to respond to the most pressing needs, as well as bringing forth innovative solutions to complex developmental challenges we face for a better future for our people in the Maldives. With the Gender Equality Action Plan, we have introduced the need for a gender-responsive budgeting and gender audits in the planning, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of our national planning and budgetary process. Supported by UNFPA, this includes costing related to climate change, environmental issues, and disaster risk reduction and planning. We are working with UNICEF to introduce environmental sustainability and climate action within our enabling policies and for adolescent and youth engagement as agents of change. This includes the much needed focus on resiliency of schools and climate action content in education. Despite the important strides that have been made, we recognize that there are deep and persistent challenges that must be overcome to achieve substantive gender equality. The Maldives stands ready to continue our partnership with the UN, from which we enjoy significant progress in coordination efforts. If we want to break down the barriers inhibiting the full empowerment of women and girls, our focus on a meaningful leave no one behind agenda has to take shape beyond the tagline. Indeed, when women are brought to the forefront and center of solving global challenges, such as combating the climate emergency in the Maldives, entire communities benefit and more effective and sustainable solutions are found for a resilient Maldives. I thank you deeply, members of the board, for your continuous support. Thank you.